Welcome back, you guys. Thank you very much for joining me. And before we get going, I just want to remind you, please, in the description box below, wherever you're watching this, hit the link, go to Apple Podcasts, give me them 5 stars, give me the good ratings, and leave a review. I'm trying to get my podcast game up there. And speaking about podcasts, Cornel West. If you don't know who Cornel West is, he was just most recently on Joe Rogan podcast, and I went into a deep dive into Cornel West and literally everything he has on the internet. I am obsessed with the man. I've definitely heard of him. I've definitely heard from him. He has been a surrogate. He's been on the Bernie train since 2016 and before, but he was finally on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I have to say it's easily top 3, maybe my favorite Joe Rogan podcast so far. He was phenomenal. Talk about an intellectual. When I think of a modern day intellectual, this is the human being I think of. So before I get into the nitty gritty of the policies and how he feels and where he stands when it comes to all of this policy in the 2020 race, I just want you guys to listen to him speak to just what it means to be a human being in 2019 moving forward. The complexities, this is what an intellectual is. Just take a minute and take a listen.
Oh, Lord. And one of the most fundamental questions of Western civilization is, how come Socrates never cries and Jesus never laughs?
Ooh.
Now, that's the question Thomas More was wrestling with in the Tower of London before he was executed in his dialogues on tribulation. Socrates never sheds a tear. What does that mean? The founder of philosophy in the modern West has a love of wisdom, but he never loves people, because it's impossible to love human beings and not shed tears. Wow. You go to your mama's funeral and you're not shedding tears and you're committed to the Socratic ideal of self-mastery and self-control, you need to get off the crack pipe. Get off. Show her the depths of your love for her through being outside of your self-mastery. The tears will flow. Yes. You see it? And it's the other way. It's like your daughter. This precious thing that you got when we walk in for your daughter. You see? Mm-hmm. When she graduates, you and your wife are going to have tears of joy. That ain't the moment for self-mastery. That's not the moment to be Socratic. And so when Socrates is dying, his wife walks in, Xanthippe, and she's crying. He said, get her away, get her. I can't stand tears. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. You see, I come from black folk. We start with tears. All the mess we had to come to terms with. You know what I mean? Cries and so forth. And Hebrew scripture begins.
That is just the introduction you guys have to Cornel West. He is amazing. Like, the reason I'm like jaw dropped. I listened to that clip. I watched the Joe Rogan podcast with Cornel West maybe 2 to 3 times over this past weekend, and that clip specifically maybe 4 to 5 times, because that is so deeply, just the way he explains that just blew my mind. Okay, so understand. The reason I love that so much is because he explains it so well. He says Socrates has a love of wisdom but not people, and that so clearly explains today's modern intellectual. The chase for knowledge. You want to know so much. We're searching everything on Google. We need the facts. We want all the answers. We need to know everything. And we forget about the people on the way to chasing the knowledge. I mean, that's just, I literally watched that clip. I watched the podcast over and over and over again, and literally everything that Cornel West has ever been in. That's just the intro. That is just what I want to let you guys in, because that was the clip, that was the sentence, that was the statement that got me knee deep into Cornel West, and I thought I had to share it with the rest of y'all, even though that has nothing to do with policy. It's just an intellectual being an intellectual, and it's just opening my mind. I loved it.